Thank you all for joining us this morning. For folks who have traveled from out of town, thank you for being here with us. Hope you had pleasant travels. And for the locals, thank you as well for joining us. I'm Brian Allen, Senior Program Manager here at Microsoft. I am joined for this session by three of my colleagues, Shantanu Verma, who is our lead service engineer. He's going to cover our infrastructure experience. We also are joined by Dharmendra Datakora and Karthik Jayavel. And Dharmendra is going to cover the application space, and Karthik is going to finish it up, and we're going to discuss a little bit about the enhanced administration experience, such as Mac management, and touch a little bit on the Intune connector. So we all know this famous slide here, laptops, close them, put your cameras, phones away. Won't spend time there. And our session objectives. It's pretty simple. We really want to share our deployment experiences in deploying System Center 2012 Configuration Manager SP1 here at Microsoft. And some of the key takeaways, we want to ensure that we share our lessons learned with you all so that you can take back to your customers and you're better prepared to understand the value that we've experienced deploying System Center 2012 SP1 Configuration Manager at Microsoft. And on the screen is what you see from a feature and solution perspective that we're going to cover in this session. If you are interested in other features such as OSD, et cetera, that is not on the slide, we'll be more than happy to talk about those features at the end of this session. We'll be around to answer those questions. And if we can't answer those questions, we have a slew of folks that are subject matter experts, and we'll be able to follow up and get you the answer that you're looking for. All right, really quick, let's talk about the adoption goals and what was important for us here at Microsoft IT and in adopting System Center Configuration Manager 2012 SP1. One of the things that you guys may be hearing out in the field, that your customers may be experiencing, is the need to upgrade seamlessly, optimize your infrastructure, but also minimize the downtime, minimize the service interruption to our end users. And in System Center Configuration Manager 2012, for folks who are familiar with the 2012 release, we know that there's an introduction of the application catalog as well as the software center, which makes System Center now in the face of the end users, which makes it a little bit more important not to take these services down and minimize that downtime and end user impact. Another one of our key goals was to embrace that user-centric experience and make sure that end users are empowered to be productive anywhere, anytime, on any device. And that brings that whole consumerization of IT, bring your own device, whatever you want to call it, user-centric, where folks are now bringing their personal assets into the enterprise and they expect to be productive as if it was a company asset. And so we want to make sure that we're bringing that all together, and our adoption goals were as such, and we'll talk about how we experience those and achieve these goals here at Microsoft. So a little bit on the scope and approach. As you can see here, we have a large infrastructure. We have 5 primary sites that are geo-distributed across the globe. We have roughly 425,000 devices in our scope, 300,000 being clients, another 125,000 being mobile devices. We actually have the mobile devices managed through EAS, and we have the Exchange connector implemented from a reporting perspective. This is important because this is what we're going to manage as part of the Unified Device Management solution with the Intune connector that we'll talk about a little bit later. But this is what's in scope from a manage the modern devices perspective. And as well, on the screen, you see users. Now with System Center Configuration Manager 2012, SP1, and being end-user focused and user-centric focused, it's important now that we no longer just think about the infrastructure and the devices, but the users are now extremely important as much as the devices. So you have to account for the users and account for that experience as well. And as you can see here, we have a roughly 180,000 users here at Microsoft that we need to ensure that are productive and we're not taking services down from these users. So let's talk about how we actually achieve this goal and how we got there. It's pretty seamless, and Shantanu is going to share the infrastructure experience with you all, but this was a pretty seamless experience. We automated everything, which made it real seamless and allowed us to achieve those goals and not take the service down and keeping the infrastructure down throughout the rebuilds. So before I attempt to simulate how seamless the automation process was, I'm going to bring Shantanu up to give a little key facts on the pre-upgrade steps and post-upgrade steps, and then we'll walk through this. And then at the end, I'd like to kind of go around the room and see what your expectations are in the form of how long do you actually think it would take to upgrade an infrastructure of this size with 300,000 clients and see if we can wow some folks here with the time that we've taken to complete this upgrade. So Shantanu, let's talk about the pre and post upgrade steps a little bit.
Sure, Brian. I think we should ask about that. What do you think about that? How many days it will take for infrastructure upgrade?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Yeah, anybody?
Ask it now. So if we told you it took less than 90 days, how many folks will be impressed with 90 days, less than 90 days? All right, good.
Almost 30%.
What about 60 days, a little bit more hands, 45, yeah?
Two of them.
No, I hear some heads like, no, that's too long. If I said a week, would folks be pretty impressed? Yeah? All hands are not going up. Wow, you guys have some high expectations, right? All right, not even a week. All right, that's good to know, though.
So the infrastructure, what you see on the architecture, just for the infrastructure upgrade and platform, we upgraded in 3 days. Everything, all sites, everything what we have listed there. And you can see the task which Brian has listed on the pre-upgrade, upgrade, and the post-upgrade. There are like 15 to 20 tasks to be done for each site. And they are in sequence, and there are some testing and validation. So what my point is that if you start with the pre-upgrade, there's a lot of planning to be done. And the critical part I want to bring it, if you see that backup and restore their database before even you start the Service Pack 1 upgrade is very, very critical. The reason I want to call is that you may feel that, hey, I'm upgrading the Service Pack 1. I don't need the backup and restore to test that restore will happen. I have seen some of the SMS talk discussion forum that customer has upgraded the SP1 and some catastrophic failure happened in between, and there's no way you can go back. The only way you can go back to the original state, which is the backup and restore the site, and then start the SP1 upgrade. I don't think it will happen. It's an edge case, but still you need to plan if it is a production and customer site. So that was like backup, restore. Every time when we do any site SP1 upgrade, we make sure that backup the database and run the restore. And that database is good backup copy. That is what is one of the critical steps for managing Microsoft. And then the TestDB upgrade is, again, gives you a confirmation and also kind of more confidence that the upgrade will be seamless. Because if you have changed some schema, which you're not allowed or not supported, but still customer may have done some additional custom tables in that, and that may be interrupting with the upgrade process, you can find through the TestDB upgrade. So that will allow you to know that in advance that if you have any schema changes which will conflict with the upgrade process. That is very, very important. And then followed by the copy source, but these are the standard thing. You copy the source and upgrade is simple, the wizard voice, or you can automate it, and the rest of the post upgrade. So we'll talk about a little bit more. I'll just hand over to Brian back there to school, but we will cover more today.
Yeah, so again, just kind of going through the steps from a seamless experience. We go ahead and kicked it off. It ran through the pre-upgrade scripts. As you can see, it goes through the rebuild of the sites, central site, primary sites, secondary sites, installs other components that System Center does, goes through its hierarchy replication once the site is completely built out. And then we took a phased approach in upgrading our clients using the auto client upgrade feature that Dharmendra is going to talk about. Took a phased approach, getting those clients upgraded, 300,000 clients upgraded, and then went through and ran the post-upgrade scripts. Again, all automated, seamless to our end users. And this actually took us 255 site system and 300,000 clients upgraded to Configuration Manager SP1 in less than 30 days. And as Shantanu pointed out, 3 days for the infrastructure, but 300,000 clients with minimum end user interruption, minimum downtime to the infrastructure in less than 30 days. I think that's pretty significant for the product. It was a pretty significant dog fooding and user experience in us validating. And then the rollout at RTM was really seamless in ensuring that we were able to accomplish our adoption goals as well as make sure that the end users remain productive throughout the whole process. So I'm going to turn it over to Shantanu to talk a little bit more about that automated approach and upgrading the infrastructure. Thanks again for joining us this morning, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the session.
Thank you, Brian. Before I go and start about talking about the infrastructure upgrade and platform, I want to know more about your customers here. Want to understand that how many of you have the customer who are already running Configuration Manager 2012 or in a planning phase that they will be upgrading or they are migration? How many? Wow, there are a lot of more hands than last time when we were almost I can say 50% folks have in a planning or deployment. Good. The second fact I want to ask a question which will help me to go to the next slide. And how many of your customers in general, it's not related to Configuration Manager, If service packs are released, for example, configuration manager or operations manager, for example, it released in January, and customers are aggressive to go and upgrade the service pack within the 6 months time frame. How many of you have customers who upgrade the service pack within the 6 months? 1, 2, I will say 10 to 20%. Good. That's what I expected, that very few customers will go aggressive and upgrade the service pack 1. And one of the fact, if you look into the CSSKs and calls, a lot of customers' issues are resolved in the hotfix, which are released post-RTM, or in the service pack 1. And we have seen significant improvement in the overall configuration manager product and the feature-wise. And we can name few of them that has been changed. So the one other fact that why customer doesn't upgrade the service pack 1 is time-consuming. It takes a lot of time, planning. And also, it's also the cost overall for upgrading the infrastructure. If you have not upgraded from RTM to SP1, it's all associated with that. And that was a pain point for us also. It was more painful for us because as Microsoft IT dogfooding environment, we are not upgrading just one time. We are having a dogfooding commitment. We upgrade beta, we upgrade the pre-RTM release, and we upgrade the RTM. So it was more painful for time, cost, resource, as well as the availability to keep the customer happy and services up and online so that your machines are ready for the patching and you don't get interrupted for the quarantine and DA. So that is one of the reasons we invested in our heavily that this time in service pack upgrade, we will not going to do the manual upgrade. We did almost zero-touch upgrade for our SP1 in the entire production hierarchy in each iteration. So what we used, we looked into the different options, how we can do it. There are a lot of bunch of scripts available, and we have many technologies available. We chose orchestrator because we found that this is the way we can put all our, like in XML or in a form. You can imagine the Excel sheet. You can fill the information of the server, where to run, what to run, and that's what the leverage we took overall. So all infrastructure upgrade, I'm talking about like 3 days just for upgrading all this large environment. It just someone has filled the information and said run book and gone back for a coffee and lunch and came back and someone was watching the log. That's it. There's no intervention during the upgrade for entire process. And how we approach this thing is using the 2 ways. One is that we also want to automate in a way that I don't need to build this automation again and again when the configuration manager next version comes, or it should work for 2007 or 2012, and also it should work for anything which I have. It shouldn't be like, oh, WS has changed, or Windows has changed now, so I have to. So we wanted to build automation engine using orchestrator runbook, which can help you to just plug and play. Just plug the source file and tell what need to be done, where need to be done. That's it. And that's why you see that I have listed configuration file. In configuration file, you basically list that what output you want and where you want to run it. In the task configuration, you have the task, hey, I want to stop at, because in the upgrade process, you might feel something fails in between. You have 15 steps, and it failed at 5 steps, and you need to pause and resume. So we wanted to have the control of the task, where you want to stop, where you want to start again, or you can restart again. So we have more details about this because I feel that a lot of folks might be interested in this, that can we go in deeper and share all these scripts. There are a lot of like 40 and 40 plus scripts. We are not going to cover in depth in this session, but there is a session coming to, I think, on Thursday evening, which is just dedicated for the overall automation. So I just wanted to high-level touch that this is the way we upgraded, so we did not follow the wizard approach for upgrading. Let's quickly look into that. The other 2 things which I wanted to bring in discussion and very popular is, did we use Windows Azure Cloud DP, which is not new thing, and a lot of remote customer has the satellite offices. And what did we have learned, and is there any key takeaways I can share with you here so that when customer asks this question, you can answer this easily. So if you see on the left-hand side, and you can see that, sorry, right-hand side for your, you see the corporate network infrastructure, which is primary site MPDP. And if you want to have a customer to also have the application deployment on internet, what they have to do is have the management point, which is internet facing. That's the only one role you have to have internet facing. And then you can host a DP in the cloud, which is in nothing is a blob storage in the Windows Azure. Once you store, then what will happen, all the application deployment will be downloaded for that location from the Windows Azure. And all the software update like patches, those will traditionally come from Microsoft Update. So as you know that in the subsettings, you can have a fallback, so it go to Microsoft Update. So this Windows Azure is only used for application deployment, is not used for the Microsoft Update. The reason is that you don't want to have updates to go and cost you on the WAN traffic and those things. It should be coming from that source. Now, Why we didn't implement it at Microsoft IT? We looked into all the branch offices at Microsoft. We didn't find any location which was having a satellite office and didn't have CorpNet connectivity. They were all offices are CorpNet connected. So we did the small proof of pilot or lab testing with the synthetic package, and we found some of the learnings there. That's what I want to share. The advantage of Cloud DP for your customer, if they want to show that, hey, is this content is secure on Windows Azure? If my LOB applications are there, my other custom applications are there, yes, it is encrypted from the CM, and it's being sent to blob storage. Second thing where it helps, if you are having a lot of offices opening and you don't have to worry about the resources when the DP will be there locally, as well as that I need to have scale back and scale down as you need, it's very, very helpful, Windows Azure. The third thing, to save your cost, it supports the branch cache. So basically, not every client in that location will downloading from Windows Azure blob storage. It will be only the client in that one client in per subnet will download from Windows Azure. The rest of the client will use the branch cache. So that is the advantage. Now the thing comes that why we did not use it. So there were some features we were looking, and it is important for us, like operating system deployment we use at Microsoft. That is not supported in the Cloud DP. So you cannot have Windows 8 or Windows 7 image in the Cloud DP and have that is not. And there are like, that was the main reason. And then the app V streaming, and those are the less important feature for us because we did not have a lot of app V work related. But OSD was a deal breaker for us that, hey, I cannot have. And also there was no satellite office. So this is some information. It will be handy for use when you talk to the customer and they think of Windows Azure. That's what I wanted to share with you. There are more. So there was one blog done by Sustain Engineering. I think it's 3 or 4 days back. It has more details. For example, some customer are also interested, hey, what does it cost to me in Windows Azure? And if it is a cost, then how do I do that maths and formula? And they have done a very good, simple, basic formula, which you can use to predict the cost, what it's going to cost you on the project. So this blog is posted. It has all the details, how you can predict the cost for that location. Second thing, I want to talk about the software update point. The reason I want to talk about this is one of the feature which has little bit redesign and change, and it has confused some of the people that, hey, why it is changing from RTM to S. So that's I want to touch base and want to share that where you can educate customer how to use this if they are on. So this is applicable for those customers who are using Configuration Manager 2012 RTM and planning to do the SP1 upgrade. Because if you are already using Configuration Manager 2012, you will be upgrading to SP1, and there are some changes to the software update point. One, the software update point is redesigned. What does mean that the reason they redesigned, because in RTM, if the large customer has more than one forest within one primary site, you cannot have NLB supporting 2 forests because the NLB node need to be in same IP not IP subnet, but same subnet boundaries, and you cannot have the NLB cluster in 2 forests. So that was a challenging, and customer has to go for 2 primary sites to support 2 forests, which is not the way primary site was supposed to. So that's why the sub role was kind of blocking people, and that's why the product group looked into it and redesigned it. What it means that you can have multiple subs within the multiple forests, and it will support all. And so basically they went ahead and removed the NLB concept. There is no NLB anymore for the sub, which is software update point in the console. It will be a sub list, which is similar to management point like MP list. But still, the customer would require the NLB like Microsoft IT. So we had a challenge. We use software update point for installing the CM client in all the Microsoft supported OUs. Basically, we enable the GPO and its point to WSS URL. And that's one of the reasons that we were thinking that if I go with the sub list, which is the new feature, I still want the NLB, because how do I point everyone in that region to one URL to install the client? And that has gone. So that is still supported, but there's a certain steps which not everyone is aware. So I want to bring that to the speed that what you have to do. First thing, before upgrading, you have to remove the NLB from the console. You go in the console, there's a site setting for the software update configuration. Just change from NLB and put your one of the node as an active sub. That is a must to have before you upgrade this SP1. And this is documented well in TechNet as well. Second step, once your upgrade done, and you still need of NLB users in like Microsoft IT was using software update based client installation, we cannot stop using the software update based client installation. There is a PowerShell CMDLets which can help you to configure the NLB back and I have a walkthrough which can tell you that how to do this one by one. So this is more information on the TechNet goes back. It has a lot of information to run to step by step to run through what it looks like. So basically, as I talked, you remove the NLB, SP1 upgrade. You go to the connect to PowerShell, which is in the console itself, and you can use this commandlet PowerShell, and that will done. That's it. So you're still in the NLB using. It's not in the console, but PowerShell CMD lets help you. And this is what we worked with them, Power Product Group, before the release that, hey, every customer will need some type of scenario, so they release the PowerShell. The other important thing that I would highly recommend to use the console connect to PowerShell. The reason is that if you go to the PowerShell UI, not from the console, by default, the PowerShell will not have this CMDlets. So you will have to import that CMDlets, first of all. And even though if you import, and by default, the PowerShell opens in 64-bit, and this all CM configuration manager PowerShell is 32-bit. So you have to go and again open in 32-bit. To avoid all this step, just open a PowerShell CMDlets from the console itself, which will take care of all this PowerShell and all the CMDlets there. So this is the step. And the last step is the SQL query I shared here. If you want to make sure that NLB is configured or not, you can run this SQL query, which will give you and show the virtual IP address for NLB if you have configured, or it will show the single sub. So this is the, I've seen a lot of people asking this question on the sub, so I said, hey, why don't we share with your customer if you're planning it. With this, I would like to invite Dharmendra to talk about, especially on the application catalog and deployment. Client upgrade, sorry.
Good morning, everybody. You guys hear me well? Okay. My name is Dharmendra, and I'm one of the service engineers in the group, and I specialize in the client upgrade, client health, and applications. Let's talk about client upgrade. How many of you guys had nightmares with the client upgrades? In order to understand what is the real load on the server when it's doing, how many clients you need to do per day. Did you guys have those issues before? Yeah. Earlier, we used to have the client upgrades maybe once in 1.5 years or something like that when we have R2, R3. But the Configuration Manager 2012 has a lot of prerequisites like Silverlight, a platform agent, and stuff. You may not have to upgrade the client all the time, but you may have to upgrade the prerequisites, right? I mean, we don't have a solution before SP1. How do you service your prerequisites and the client in a way that you don't have to put a lot of effort? So there comes a feature in the SP1 called automatic client upgrades. So what is the objective of this feature is that in the old in prior SP1, if you do a client upgrade, right, you do all the clients at one shot, either by using the WSS installation or by doing a software distribution. But you can't control the load. Like you can pull down the MPs or you can pull down the DPs because you are upgrading. Or you need to sit and do phase-wise in the software distribution, which is a lot of manual touch. So the objective of here is that you use some GUI in the console with one click, and rest is taken care of automatically. And the other core objectives and benefits here are that, as I said, you should be able to even upgrade the prerequisites, not only the client MSI, but if you have a Silverlight upgrade or a Lantern agent, which is a policy platform agent upgrade, how do you do that? So these are the benefits of it. This feature covers them. But how does this feature work? So in the console, you go to the hierarchy settings and enable the checkbox. So why it is on the hierarchy settings is that this is a hierarchy level setting. You cannot turn on the client upgrade per site. Either you do per hierarchy or not using this feature. So once you turn it on, what are you going to put there is that you're going to say how many number of days you're going to use to upgrade it. In Microsoft IT, for 300,000 clients, we use 10 days. We ran 3 cycles of the, because we do dogfooding, right? Beta, RC, and RTM. We ran all these 3 cycles for 300,000 clients in 10 days. So what does that number 7 there in the example means that in 7 days, it is going to randomize in such a way that you upgrade all the clients. And then the randomization here is to protect the load on the MPs and DPs, and I will tell you how the randomization works. But for the time being, this is, just take it this way that in the console, you go to hierarchy settings and just put the n number of days that are required for you to do the client upgrade. And it will also tell you who modified it. And the other thing is that it will also let you specify the base version. Say, maybe RTM or the SP1 RTM is your base version. If you specify the base version, it's going to make sure that all your clients remain at that base version. So that's one of the key objectives of this feature. So what is the engineering behind it? How does this whole thing work? How does randomization is going to work and stuff? So once you go and enable the checkbox on the server, because the global data, you can do it on primary side or on the central. It doesn't matter. It's a hierarchy level setting. It's going to be applicable in the entire hierarchy. Once you do it, the clients are going to receive a policy. I'm going to go in detail what that policy has and stuff, and I'm showing you the demo. But the clients are going to receive a policy, and then a scheduled task is going to get created on the client. So the clients get a policy, all the clients in less than an hour, whatever is your policy refresh cycle, right? Depends upon your policy refresh cycle. So the clients are going to get the policy, and the scheduled tasks are going to get created. The randomization is there in what time the scheduled task gets fired. Are you guys with me? Right. So once the scheduled task gets fired, it's going to install the client, and the logic is there inside the scheduled task that if your client is already on the latest version, it's going to check if your prerequisites require the servicing, and it's going to upgrade your prerequisites. It's not only that. If your client has a KB or hotfix, if a hotfix is released, if you put the hotfix in the right folder, it's going to even understand that, oh, my client is fine, my prerequisites are fine, but I require a hotfix, and it's going to fire the hotfix. So everything is randomized. I'm going to show you much more on how this is going to work in a demo. All right. So you go to the sites, and you highlight your site, and you go to the hierarchy settings. And here is the new tab, automatic client upgrade. So I already enabled it, so let me disable it. Right. So this is how it would be out of the box, right? Go ahead and check it here, right? And see, for the time being, will take maybe 2 days. Okay. Click on apply. Now click on OK. So what happens here in reality is, once you click OK, so in the configuration manager, out of the box, there are two packages that are getting shipped. These packages are present in the RTM code too, like not SP1 RTM, but the real RTM, but they are not lighted up. So this comes out of the box of the package. So what happens is that these have deployments, especially the second one, the client upgrade package, that sits in the disabled state out of the box. So once you have the client installed, right, you already have the policy, but it's sitting in the disabled state. Once you go and put the checkbox, say that, hey, I want to have the client upgrade done, this program is going to get enabled. So that's a software distribution program we're talking about. And then the clients are going to run that program. And what is the code in that program is that create a scheduled task before the 2 days. So if you put 10 days, it will take a randomizer time from now to the 48 hours. It can pick any time to the second level. It has a randomization to the second, not like hour, minutes or something. It can take any seconds from now to the 48 hours and create a scheduled task. So let's go and see if I was created the scheduled task yet or not. It's not yet. Let's go ahead and refresh the policy. Okay. Now let's go and see the client logs. Because the site server, the site logs are here. So it's 10:46. Yeah, we ran a program just now. See, this is the new scheduled task gets created. It's called Configuration Manager Client Upgrade Task. And, sorry, it triggers at hold on. It's let me put it in the right space so that you can just see it. So it's scheduled to run at 12:33 a.m. maybe tomorrow morning. If you want to see how this happened, let's go to program files. See Windows. CCM setup. Go to logs. Log. So the CCM setup, because we fired the CCM setup, it runs it, but because it knows that it has a randomization time of 2 days, it says that it got scheduled at 12:06, 8:33 a.m. That's UTC time, which is, what's the local time? Local time is 12:06, 12:33 a.m. That is tomorrow morning at 8:33 p.m. So what's happening here is that all the clients, if you have like 300,000 clients, will all of them run this software distribution, and they create a scheduled task in a randomized fashion from now to 10 days. You might be doubtful how effective is this randomization. So I'm going to show you how effective the randomization went. See, what you're now seeing is the Microsoft IT's 300,000 deployment randomization. If you see that, for each day, we are doing around 13K, around that. And the graph is taken on around 28. That's why the before days, I think the graph was taken on 27. The first day, I mean, it ran the randomization, but 333 machines are offline, so their state message doesn't get upgraded. Because they're offline, right? They did not run it. But the overall, we were doing 13K because even though we have 300,000 machines, not all of them were online. That's why we are not able to do the 30K per day. So we were doing around 13K per day. And if that's per day, but if you want to look at hour, so what happened on a single day? Are all of them running on one day? No. If you look at from 0 to 24 hours, this graph was taken around 18th hour or 19th hour. We were doing around 700 odd per hour. It's not that, again, 700 odd are running exactly on that single hour. It's randomized to the second. Each client would fire at its own individual time on that nth second and do it. So that's how effective the randomization works. So the benefits are that not all of the clients are installing at one single time, so you don't have the influx of the state messages. Not all the clients are pulling the policies from the MP. Even for installing the client, you're not downloading the bits at a time from the DPs. So overall, you don't bring down your infrastructure. And between these graphs were taken, we were doing the client upgrades even when the patch deployment is going on. Still we are able to finish 300,000 clients in 10 days, around 30K per day. So how this, earlier we never thought about dreaming of doing the client upgrades when the patch is going on, but because of this feature, we were able to do that. So again, you might have a lot of doubts on what happens if the client is offline and stuff. So we put some notes here. You can say if the client is offline, and the next day it comes back, it's going to fire the schedule immediately because it's a scheduled task. If your client is offline all the 7 days or 10 days, whatever you set in, the next time it comes, it has a randomization policy of 24 hours. So whatever the clients that are not present during the upgrade cycle, if they come back online, they get their upgrade in 24 hours randomization. And you may have a few questions that what if I have a remote points where we don't want to pull the bits from? Out of the box, if you don't have a local distribution point, it will fall back onto the management point to bring down the client. So that's how this feature works. All right. Let's talk a little bit about application management. In the SP1, the core features of the application management are the modern apps. I mean, you can segregate them into three major buckets. One is the modern apps for WinRT and x86. The other is the Windows Phone 8. The other is the iOS. I think all of you guys might know that you can target the modern apps only to the users. So that same restriction applies even if you deploy to the configuration manager. So once you upload the apps into the configuration manager, I'm going to show you how to upload and all that stuff, right? Once you upload it, the permissions you'd get to deploy. You may see you get to deploy to systems too, but it's not going to work. You have to deploy only to the users because that's the fundamental restriction that comes from the Windows. We have also deep link support. How many of you guys know what the deep link is? Okay, for the people that doesn't know what a deep link is, so you can get your modern apps in two fashions, right? One, everybody knows that you can go to store and get your app, right? The other way is that what is getting pushed from the configuration manager. That's called side loading. If you don't get your app from the store, the other way of doing is a side loading. That's what the configuration manager does for your LOB apps, because these apps are built by you inside the company. They're going to do side load. The other thing, deep link, is that in the configuration manager, you can put a link to the store. Say that, I don't know, maybe Adobe Reader or Link. You don't want to have a content because the content is already on the store, and it's a Microsoft Corporation app. So what you do is that you link in the configuration manager. There's a deployment type called deep link. You're going to use that feature and link your configuration manager to the store app, so that when the user goes to the his machine and opens the application catalog, they would be able to see that app there. When they click on it, it's going to open the store. When you go to the application catalog or software center, click on that app, it's going to open the store. And from the store, you have to again click on install. It's a two-step process. It's not like there's no way you can enforce the apps from the store. You guys have to remember that. The deep link will only, instead of you going and searching in the store, it's going to open the right page on the store. All right, so what are the side loading requirements? I told you, right? If you build your own app, you have to do the side loading. So what are the requirements for it? So you can put the server SKUs and the enterprise SKUs in one bucket. They follow the same path. That means all your x86, x64 domain joined machines, which are having an enterprise SKU, what all you need to do is that you have to make sure that there's a GPO called Allow Trusted Apps to install. You need to turn it on for the Windows operating system to trust the apps that did not come from the store. And also, the point which we did not mention is that we presume that's common in all the domain joined machines is that you need to have your root certificate, your corporate root certificate, push it onto the machines using a GPO, which is a common practice in all the enterprises. Why? Because you are going to sign your app. You're going to sign your app with this certificate. The Windows, for it to trust this app, it needs to be in a trusted certificate. So that's the reason. I'm going to show you in the demo how we are going to sign these apps and all that stuff. But in the other ways, for the x86 or x64 enterprise and server SKUs, it's simple. Push a certificate and then turn this GPO on. You're good. But what happens on the WinRT machines? For the WinRT machines, there's a special key that you need to purchase from Microsoft. So when you are creating this hybrid connection, which I think is a detailed topic from our group tomorrow, from Karthik, if you attend it, they're going to show you how do you create this hybrid connection. And then while creating the hybrid connection, it's going to ask you the side loading key that you purchased from Microsoft. So if you put in there, when the hybrid machines receive the policy from the when the WinRT machines receive the policy from the Windows Intune, it's going to enable the side loading key, and also it's going to enable that Allow Trusted Apps to install on the WinRT. But if you want to do on yourself, you need to go to Microsoft website and purchase a side loading key and have to run the side loading key commandlets to do that. So that's are the requirements, but we'll see. So what are the steps that we do? Because we have a lot of internal teams that build the apps. They build the apps. All the apps have to go to the Windows App Certification Kit. This is one thing that needs to remember. If you want to deploy your apps using Configuration Manager, have the developers who develop the app get it certified using the Windows Application Certification Kit. Basically, it's going to check whether the schema is in place, in proper, that makes it, that enables it for enterprise deployment. And then you need to sign your app with a trusted certificate. I'm going to show you what certificates, how we post in the Microsoft and stuff in a while in demo. But remember, you need to sign your app. And while you are signing, there's a caveat there which everybody needs to remember, that each application, modern app, has a manifest file. Inside that manifest file, you need to declare the publisher name of your certificate. Certificate has the publisher name. You need to take it and declare it inside it. Otherwise, you won't be able to sign your app. And if you don't sign your app properly, when it is getting deployed through the side loading mechanism, the operating system is going to reject it, and you'll have a failure.
And really quick before you move on, Dharmendra, Sorry if this sounds a little odd. But really touching on this point here, some of our lessons learned in this particular space, we actually, in our early dog food, the Intune, the Unified Device Management Solution, we deployed a bunch of apps, and we signed those apps, but we didn't necessarily certify. And so we went through a whole learning process with Microsoft IT certificate team in coming up with a process to seamlessly get these apps signed, certified, and deployed in a timely manner, right? And it, caused us to think a little bit harder and overhaul some of our processes to streamline the deployment of this, because this actually adds some overhead to the whole process in the old days of the application deployment scenario. Now with modern devices and getting these things certified and making sure they're signed, you want to make sure that your processes are in place, that you have these certificates in place, and that you're working with the compliance team, your customers are, to ensure that all the requirements are met before deploying these out to your users. And so this actually caused us maybe some 20-day delay in deploying apps, and where we had to pull them, recertify them, re-sign them, then republish them. So, caused a little bit of impact. So I just want to share that with you all. Be prepared for that.
Thank you, Brian. So let's see a small demo on what we do in the Microsoft IT when a developer writes an app. Okay, let's get it started here. So before that, I want to show you how a app ready to be deployed looks like. So this is an AppX file. All of you guys know what an AppX file is. That's the extension that the modern apps come in if you want to deploy. So like we have EXEs, MSIs, AppX is an extension standard for the modern apps. If you go to properties, if you go to digital signature, this is a signed app by Microsoft Corporation internal use. That's us. Oops, sorry about that. So if you go to the details of this app and view certificate, you see the certification path. See, the top one is the Microsoft internal corporate root. This is the one that I was saying that you need to push it to all the machines using the GPOs. And then we are going to sign our application with this cert. This is a child cert. You don't have to deploy the one that's highlighted. You don't have to do that because it's a child certificate. It gets automatically trusted. And we use the same certificate for both WinRT apps and the x86 apps. Because if you know how the application design is, that there is one application and there is different deployment types, right? And there can be a AppX file that is capable of running even on WinRT and x86 and x64. I mean, AppX files are different. Say, for example, we encourage our developers to build an AppX file that runs on all the platforms. But there are some applications that you cannot. So, but because we use the same app at an app level to deploy on the x86 and WinRT, we use the same certificate for both WinRT apps and the x86 apps. That's a key thing. So let's see what happens. So this is a signed app, what you are seeing as an example. But when the developer gives you, he doesn't have the ability to sign with a corporate certificate, right? He uses a dev certificate, and he does his testing, and he runs it to the Windows App Certification Kit. Everything is good. Then he gives it to you. But because he signed with a dev cert, you need to re-sign it, right? But as I said, before re-signing it, you need to go and edit the app manifest file. So how do we do it in the Microsoft? The Windows 8 comes up with this SDKs. So we call them Win8 tools. Even if you have Visual Studio installed, they get installed, or you have to download the Windows 8 SDK. There are two files that are pretty important. One is the make appx.exe. What this will help you is that so once you get the appx file, you need to unwrap it, right? So let's use so this is the command line that we are going to use it. So if you copy it, paste it. This is my files 1. That's going to extract this whole file, and here, this is where it extracted it. This is the app manifest.xml file I was talking to you guys about. You see this? This is the information which we need to put in, this publisher information. Because Dev gave you, he has his own certificate information inside it. You need to go in there, and you need to put it the corporate information. Where are you going to get this information from? The easy way of getting is, at least what we use is, go to Innate Apps. If you have one app that's already signed, the easy way to get is go here. Once you say view certificate, go to details and say subject. So this is what it should match to. When you open the app, when you open the manifest file, make sure that this information is present here. The whole thing. That's how. So once you do this, now it's ready to, because we unzipped it and extracted it, the APPX file into a bunch. Now we changed and put the right publisher information and rest of the thing. Now you need to wrap it up. How are you going to do it? You're going to use the same exe again. If you guys get to see. I'll call it 2. Then it's going to zip it back. What did we call it? Okay, let's see, what did we call it? We call it in C Windows temp, my package 2. C Windows here. So we stitched it back. That's the way that what we do inside the Microsoft IT is that if Dev sends the package, we are going to change the publisher name to the relevant certificate publisher name, and we're going to stitch it back. And then you need to sign it. We use the signtool.exe. Again, the signtool.exe also, let me show you. Windows 8 tool, sorry. Yeah, the signtool.exe. This also comes if you install the Visual Studio or with the Windows 8 SDK. Then you have to use it and sign it. You can use various command lines depending upon your stuff, like signtool/sign and put your certificate. And one important thing is that make sure that all of your applications get signed with a timestamp. If you don't have the timestamp, the problem is that if your certificate's validity is expired, if you don't have the timestamp, then that app is not trusted anymore. So Windows 8 OS has a native system to delete the apps that are not trusted. So make sure that all of your apps are timestamped, which is very important because, I mean, the certificate has a validity date after all, right? So if you don't timestamp it, those apps won't work. That's the important learning we had. That's that. Let's get on to the PowerPoint here. Okay, before I go, I want you to give a brief introduction to what we did for the AFP 5.0 in the Microsoft. We had a very limited apps, and we have an app virtual bugger in Product Studio, and I'll quickly run through the scenario what we have to do to make them Windows 8 ready. So to become Windows 8 ready and to have your service going on, you have to first bring them onto 4.6 SP2. Can you install 5.0 right away? Yes, you can, but if you have a huge portfolio of apps, right? I mean, everybody has. If you are running application virtualization, you have a huge portfolio of apps. So you put 4.6 SP2 client and the old app sequenced app files. You can, the configuration manager SP1 can deploy apps to the 4.6 SP2. So at least your service continuity is going on. But now what you need to do is that you need to resequence those apps into the AFP 5.0, right? And then you'll deploy AFP 5.0 client. AFP 4.6 and AFP 5.0 can coexist together. Are you guys with me? Okay. So what is the new feature we have in the SP1 is called connection groups. If you guys know what is a dynamic suiting, if you have apps that are interdependent on each other, earlier we used to have the dynamic suiting and we had to deploy them as a task sequence. But now you don't have to do it in the configuration manager SP1. We have a feature called connection groups. It's in the console. You can once you created two applications, all you need to do is that put them in a one connection group. that creates a policy on the client that makes them enable to talk to each other. Say, for example, if all of you guys know what a Bugger and Product Studio is that, you cannot install a Bugger without installing a Product Studio. But if you have a virtual Bugger, virtual Product Studio, how are they going to talk to each other? So you need to enable these connection groups so that they can talk to each other. It's nothing but a dynamic suiting which we used to do in the 4.6 SP1. So anyway, what apps are eligible for connection groups? It should be a middleware app, like we have a few examples. If you have a Java or .NET dependency on an application, or if you have Visual Studio add-on dependency. The other classic example is that Office and Link. They are interdependent on each other to update the FreeBSD status and all that stuff. If they are virtual applications, you need to put a pipe to talk to each other. The same thing what we did for the Bugger and Product Studio. So only these kind of apps that have a true interdependency, not a prerequisite, but has an interdependency to work in conjunction to deliver something that you need to use in the connection groups. What did we do inside the Microsoft? First we deployed 4.6 SP2, and then we converted all the, resequenced all the applications into the AppV 5.0, and then we deployed the AppV 5.0 client, and then we created the AppV 5.0 applications in the console, and then we created the virtual environments wherever it is necessary, not that all apps are dependent on other apps. And then we deployed the AppV apps of 5.0, and then we slowly uninstalled the 4.6 SP2. That's the path we took in the Microsoft to have the service continuity for the virtual apps, but still migrate to AppV 5.0. That's all I have. I think I'm going to invite Karthik to quickly run through the mobile management scenarios.
Hello. Thanks, Dharmendra. So let's talk about some cool features in Config Manager SP1. Next, we're going to talk about Apple Mac management. There is always a curiosity and interest within the user group when and how Apple Mac devices will be managed in Config Manager. In Config Manager SP1, Mac management is possible with a list of feature sets. Few of them are like discovery, enrollment, software distribution, settings management, formerly DCM, and then the patch management. So we wanted to try or pilot the Mac management feature in Config Manager SP1. So for that, we went through a lot of planning. There are two types of enrollment. One is user enrollment and machine enrollment. We opted in for user enrollment because most of the machines, Mac machines in Microsoft IT are not domain joined. If they are not domain joined, you cannot discover, and it's very tough to manage, use the machine enrollment. So we opted in for user enrollment. For that, there are some certificate requirements. We worked very closely with our Microsoft certificate team and tried to find a template, right template, and the right access for all users to use the certificate. Once we got the certificate piece ready, we went into the agent installation. The agent installation has three pieces. First one is the actual bits installation, and the second one is the certificate enrollment, and the last one is the machine reboot. There are a lot of user intervention in these three processes. So we wanted to make this experience more seamless and also less user intervention as possible. We tried that by using an automated way or by using a shell script. We created a shell script to handle the agent installation as well as the certificate enrollment and let the user to reboot the machine. So it was like all users have to do is just run the script using the user ID, or they just have to use the user ID. No need to give the password it's not exposed to. The script will take care of the first two steps and let the user to reboot the device. Once the Mac device is enrolled, we sent two different deployments. One is Skype, other one is SCEP, that is the System-Centered Endpoint Protection, the anti-malware software for Mac, through Config Manager. There is a utility called CM App Util that comes with the product, and we use that utility to wrap up the package and then configure that in the Config Manager. Along with software distribution, we also sent settings management, DCM, to set up some policies like password policies and screensaver policies. So there are, if you know Mac, if you have some experience in Mac, there are some library preferences. Those library preferences can be handled easily in the UI itself and set those settings through settings management. If at all there are some other settings that you want to set on the device, then you can use shell script, and the config manager lets you to set the shell script, and we have used shell script also to set some settings in Mac devices. So let's talk about the benefits. There are a lot of devices, Mac devices in Yammer and Skype that Microsoft recently acquired, and also some devices in Mac Business Unit. We wanted to manage those devices. By doing this pilot, by going through this process of what are the things required, will be able to manage Mac devices in these 3 groups, and also any other new Mac devices, Mac Pro devices like PCs. And whenever we go to an on-prem model, we went through the on-prem model for this, we don't have to place the servers on the internet. When we have to place the servers on the internet, it has a lot of complexity on the network as well as on the configuration, like tunneling, giving the IPsec, and also making sure the servers are online, and troubleshooting purposes. It's kind of difficult for us. So we went through the on-prem model, installed the enrollment proxy and enrollment service point in the local data center, and the clients connect through the data center servers and then enroll the devices. And there were some requirements from our security team to adhere to that requirements. So that's one of the reasons for stick on to the user enrollment model. And actually, it actually benefits us in a way that there was already a certificate template that's available for all users in Microsoft. We just tapped onto that certificate and used it for user enrollment. If at all we had gone through the machine enrollment, it is a different and difficult process that we have to go through because machines are not domain joined. That's the next point. Since the machines are not domain joined, they have to be on the CorpNet. So because they have to talk to the config manager server, because this is an on-prem model, not an internet-facing model. So we had to place the bits as well as the script, the automated script that we built onto the boundary server where the clients can access without even using the CorpNet credentials. Once these users download these bits, they run it, and then they get the client agent enrolled. The one other thing that I wanted to mention here is if you have a software distribution deployment sent to a Mac device, the deadline time that comes with the product is 60 minutes, and the reboot time is pretty much immediate. So we had to change the settings based on our Microsoft IT needs. So we used, again, settings management, DCM, to change these settings from the deadline time to 120 minutes and the reboot delay to 60 minutes based on our needs. So you may want to consider this. If you want to make such changes, you can use settings management. Okay. With that, I'm going to call Brian Allen to explain the planning, how we plan for unified device management, and then we're going to talk about some key takeaways too.
Thanks. But in any case, going into the unified device management part of the talk, which is really exciting for me because this whole bringing this all together of consumerization of IT and bringing your own devices on into the corporate enterprise. We talked a little about modern applications and some of the modern devices that we're managing and Mac management, et cetera, right? And so for us, you know, in the early pilot stages, our native management scope, native management meaning we can actually push policies, software, et cetera, to these devices. We are, Windows Phone 8 and iOS are the devices in scope. And the devices that are not in scope were the Android devices. Now, they can be managed via EAS, Exchange Connector, but not natively managed through the Intune Unified Device Management Solution at this current release. And some quick facts and some numbers here from enrollment and as well as a visibility perspective as far as the number of devices we have in our scope. So early enrollment for Windows Phone 8 devices, as you can see, is 140. We have 24,000 that's enrolled for email that we know we're getting reporting from an EAS perspective. So we expect to manage those devices once we go broader in the March timeframe. And then RT, as you can see, 35, and then 19K that's enrolled in email, and we're able to report on those devices. Now, we know we have plenty more because we've all received free devices, but this is what's enrolled in email and what we can account for now. And then as you can see here, the apps published, we had a handful of Windows Phone 8 apps as well as some RT apps and some deep link apps to validate those scenarios from a deep link perspective. So in looking at the infrastructure and how it all comes together, as you can see, our device management scope is broad. We have lots of devices. As your customers are going to be faced with lots of devices out there in the environment, from Windows PCs to Macs to Droids to smartphones, and then also the modern devices, Windows Phone 8, Windows RT, iOS devices. And so, looking at that, that's our whole device management scope. And our unified infrastructure just comes together simply, right? You have your on-premise infrastructure. You make sure that that's connected. You implement the Intune connector, which goes out to the Intune environment. You have EAS to bring in the reported scenarios and make sure that all the records are merged so you have a holistic view of all the devices in your scope, not just the ones that are being natively managed. And as you can see, the unified device management scenario is just Config Manager 2012 SP1 connected to the Windows Intune environment, and then the Exchange connector in place for reporting. And a single pane of glass, right? They didn't want to make the overhead, administrative overhead complicated where you have two consoles, Intune or Config Manager. So it's a simplified administration experience where it's a single pane of glass and all your administration activities can be done through the Config Manager console, even in the unified device management scenario. So that being said, I want to bring Karthik back up to share some of our lessons learned and food for thought, and also give you more information on the later talk and how we go into more details in a later session this week. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. So there are some food for thought in the unified device management pilot or dogfooding that we did. So we just limited our user base to only FTEs because there was a user limit in the Intune side of 100K, 100,000. So we had to just limit to FTEs only. But I just want to briefly touch upon how we did this FTE discovery. There is an attribute in AD that in Microsoft IT, it can be different from in your environment. In Microsoft IT, there is an attribute to explain who are the employees and vendors. We used that information, expanded the discovery, tried to find the employees, and add them into the collection of Intune connector to give the license. And then we also limited only to 5,000 users to start with, and we will be rolling out more wider. And also, there are other attributes to find out enable users. We don't want to accidentally also license a user who is disabled in AD. There is also another attribute called user access control. We have to check that flag. That flag has to be discovered and then checked into the collection. So there are a couple of there are many scenarios that we tested. One is the company portal, the SSP, and also the wipe scenarios. There is an in-depth presentation coming up tomorrow at the same time. So we'll be covering all the scenarios, or most of the scenarios that we tested in that presentation. I just want to explain the wipe scenario alone. The wipe is allowed only in Windows Phone 8 devices. It will wipe to the factory default, and in WinRT, it's just going to remove your email connection to CorpNet or Corp Exchange. Also, we wanted to see how many devices we have, mobile devices we have in Microsoft IT. And so we enabled the Exchange connector in the same config manager site and ran the connector, and we could see the devices that are connected through Exchange and then also enrolled through Intune. And these enrolled devices got merged with the Exchange connector data, so we could see the real actual count of mobile population within Microsoft IT. So if you want to try, before trying with Intune, if you want to see how many mobile devices are there, I would suggest you to go and run the Exchange connector first to see how many mobile devices are connecting and how many users will be willing to basically participate in your Intune unified device management. Then, since devices are new, Windows Phone 8 as well as the management of Windows Phone 8 and WinRT are new, we wanted to make sure the users have the right instructions to enroll the device. So we created a lot of smart guides, enrollment guides, and then for help desk as well as users, and shared across the users so that the experience for them is very easy. Also, once we did the actual users enroll the devices, there are a lot of questions and escalations that came through the feedback DL. So we consolidated everything into an FAQ document and shared across to users so that they will be aware of what are all the problems they can see or what are all the common known issues. So, and also pass this to our help desk. So you may want to think about, on the support side also, what are the things that you have to do in case if you want to onboard unified device management. And there are a lot of out-of-box reports for unified device management, but we also created a couple of custom reports to see the actual inventory of the enrolled devices and all to drill down to at the machine, so the device level, to see what are all the inventory that got collected from the device. This was given to stakeholders so that they can have the view without going through a bunch of other reports. They just got this one consolidated custom report. So with all these learnings and the experiences, we got rid of the pilot, we retired all the devices, and we are building a new infrastructure very soon. We are going to go broader in the month of March with the notification email to all the users and with the instructions too. So very soon you will be seeing an email with all these instructions and how to get your SSP and everything by the time of March. Yeah, please enroll. Okay. As I told, there is an in-depth session with end-to-end talking about unified device management. Same time tomorrow in Ballroom C, which you can attend to see the demo of different types of devices and how to enroll an SSP2. There is a quick demo on how to enroll a Windows phone device. I could go through HDMI. Okay. So I'm just going to show how to enroll the device, Windows Phone 8 device. Before that, I just want to make sure internet connection is working. Okay. Okay. This is a test environment and a test Intune environment. So the user ID and everything is like a test account. In Microsoft IT, we asked users to type in their alias, the regular email address, so that they don't have to remember or type in a different password or user ID. That's one of the objectives that we had. Okay. And once here, since it's a test environment, I had to punch in the server here. In production, they didn't have to go through this screen at all. So now, using the internet connection, it's going to try to go to the Intune and talk to the enrollment server there and try to get the certificate and everything and get your device enrolled automatically. As you could see there is a checkbox to install the company app, which is automatically checked in. So the company portal will be already there. When you go back to the, it would take some time too, because it's downloading at the back end. So yeah. Once you get in there, you can log in with your account, and you can see all the apps. Due to the time crunch, I'm not going to show much about it. We're already passing the time. But I would like to call Shitanshu to talk over the rest of the slides and then go over the remaining slides.
We have 50 more slides. Sorry, this is the end of this session, so we'll talk about the Q&A. This things is just information for the SP1, so I'm not running through. I would like to have any questions you have. That some of the things like Brian and Karthik has shared about the deployment guide on some script for Mac, we are sharing with you guys. You can download those script and the deployment guide if you want. Those are the last 2 bullets. Rest of the thing is this session we referred for your resources. Any questions, anyone? If you can be a microphone, that would be nice.
Any word yet on VPN client for RT?
DPM client?
VPN.
VPN client, okay. So there is a pilot going on. It still is limited to few. We got in that pilot and few users, but it will expand. So you will be getting the VPN and RT. So we have, as a pilot users, 5,000 people, as Karthik shared, are in pilot, but slowly it will expand. So the plan is already in place and it's working. We have used that. Any other questions? Thank you very much for joining us today. Thanks.
Enjoy the rest of the week. Thanks, folks.
And the one last request, please do not forget to give the eval, which will help us to improve for the next time.